So we've noticed over the past 10 years that the Chinese investments in Africa have grown dramatically. And in fact, it's grown more than other investing countries, other traditional investing countries. And in fact, this has captured a lot of international attentions. And so just to give you a figure, in 2005, those investments were about $1 billion in Africa. In 2017, it reached $35 billion, so it increased considerably. And so with a total amount of about $80 billion, those investments were mainly, half of them were mainly going through Democratic Republic of Congo, Egypt, Niger, South Africa, and Nigeria. And so those 5 countries are actually representing 4 out of the 5 regions on the continent, which is why you think it is balanced. But at the same time, I still wanted to look at how those Chinese investments actually translate on the African continent. And so I looked at some data from the China Global Investment Tracker. And I found out actually that China has invested an average of $500 million per project in Africa between 2005 and 2017, which is quite considerable. But at the same time, I found out that just Eastern and Western Africa each captured 25% of those investments, while Central and Northern Africa, they captured 15% of those investments, each of the regions. And then 19%, the remaining 90%, went to Southern Africa. So those figures actually make you retone the thinking about the fact that Chinese investments are only focused on one region or in a specific country. So it's actually quite well balanced based on the data from 2005 to 2017. However, when it comes to the sectors where China invests the most, it's not so balanced, right? Because energy and transport actually captures more than 60% of the Chinese investments during that same period. So it's balanced from a regional breakdown, geographic breakdown, but not so much from a sector perspective. China's culture is very rich, very diverse. Chinese history dates back to thousands of years. And so it's inspired a lot of philosophies up to today. And so although the concept of the Chinese soft power was just introduced in 2007 in the Chinese politics, which is quite recent, the Chinese soft power used to rely on many tools, even before that date. And so it mainly relied on economic and diplomatic tools. So, for example, China is relying on about 500 Confucius Institutes all around the world, with about 60 of them just on the African continent. So I'll try to focus on Africa because I think this is what interests us the most. And the Confucius Institutes are spreading the Chinese culture, the Chinese language, the Chinese history. So they're very interesting soft power tools that are present in many African countries. And so in the same fashion, we have seen more and more support of the Chinese government for Chinese media organizations, which are working hard on promoting the Chinese image abroad. And we have not seen that before, but today, although there is some kind of confusion where you think that the Chinese media are often confused with propaganda, actually the Chinese media outlets are emerging as a real source of information, both nationally but also internationally. So they're having branches all over the world and they're coming up with information with worldwide coverage. So it's growing with legitimate basis. I think also another considerable aspect of the Chinese soft power is actually the Chinese contribution to the peacekeeping operations in the world, but also in Africa. Up to today, China is the second largest financial contributor of peacekeeping operations. And so this contribution is actually a way to showcase China's commitment for peace and stability around the world, but also in Africa, because most of the UN peacekeeping operations are on the African soil. And finally, an important point is the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, which is emerging as a new soft power tool, whereas China is coming up with a new globalization approach that has leadership from the South, and that aims at reaching out to all countries around the world. And so through this Belt and Road Initiative, China has been very active in committing to infrastructure all around Africa. And so it has came up with a new approach that is far away from the Western-led model of globalization. So this is another important aspect of the soft power of China's government. Chinese investment in Africa used to be very focused on energy and transport infrastructure. And so, however, you've just mentioned that there is a noticeable shift in the Chinese approach and interest for the African continent. So indeed, I think one of the most recent examples is the President Xi Jinping's visit in 2018 to Rwanda, Mauritius, and Senegal. And those countries are not really endowed with natural resources per se. So the motivations behind this interest are more from another perspective. Actually, China is repositioning itself as a partner to walk along the African countries in their journey for industrialization. So it is positioning itself as a partner for helping African countries, partnering with African countries in order for them to move away from the economic model where they rely on exporting natural resources, but rather on actually transforming the natural resources, creating value added, and also industrialization as well, with a real focus on industrialization. And that way, China is walking along the African countries in climbing the global value chain ladder. China's investment in social infrastructure in Africa, it actually takes us back to the Chinese experience in social development. When China did its opening up policy, it's actually had as a goal to improve the living condition of its population. And so from this perspective, we're seeing another side of the Chinese investments in Africa, not just infrastructure, not just energy, but actually social infrastructure. So in recent years, we have seen China involved more and more in social infrastructure. So building medical centers, involved more in health sector, water, sanitation, sports as well through the stadiums. And so this is a new type of infrastructure that is not on a long-term basis, but it's actually an infrastructure that will answer current needs of the population. So it's more short, medium-term approach. As a conclusion, China is not only appearing as a country that is interested by natural resources, by the extractive sector, the mining sector, but rather as a country that comes as a partner from the South, for South countries that will accompany them in their work for industrialization, but also for accompanying the population in their well-being, in improving their daily lives and improving their social conditions.